Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today I will be going over Kendrick Lamar's entire catalog and giving my thoughts and doing some rankings. Let's get into it. So I first started listening to Kendrick in 2014. I was in 7th grade. My best friend Tavon put me onto Kendrick. And some of the first songs I listened to, King Kunta, I would listen to them getting ready for school in the morning. I remember that, just playing it on my speaker, just loving the lyrics, loving the beat, loving just everything about it. And as I got older and went through high school, he became my favorite artist. And I thought, just since he was performing at the Super Bowl this Sunday, I thought I'd go through his entire catalog, give my thoughts on it, and rank all of his albums. So to get us started, I'll be looking at Overly Dedicated from 2010. At this point, he starts to find his voice. Up to this point, he was doing his best Wayne impression. He had an entire EP, I think, where he went over but a lot of the popular Lil Wayne songs at the time and rapped over the beats. Some of my favorite tracks from this album: Ignorance is Bliss, P&P 1.5, She Needs Me remix with Dom Kennedy. It's a good start. It's nowhere the heights that he would reach, but it was a good start, and definitely some songs I go back and listen to every now and then. Next up, the next year, 2011's Section 80. ADHD for me, the first week of school, starting high school. I was a freshman. I had my friends from junior high, but I was basically I felt like I was on my own. Didn't know anybody. After class or at the end of the day, when the bell rang, I'd throw in my headphones and listen to ADHD. It would get me going. It got me through that first week. I'll forever remember this album for that song. And some of my favorite tracks, like I mentioned, ADHD, Hold Up, Spiteful Chant, which isn't on streaming, but it's on YouTube, but that's a banger. Rigor Mortis. It's fun to go back through as I was looking through Kendrick's catalog and kind of see the progression, but also just see his vision of him wanting to be the best rapper, and he did it. He's number one. He's the only rapper to ever perform at a Super Bowl solo. I can't wait for Sunday, y'all. I cannot wait. But I digress. Looking through the catalog, I had to mention the Heart series. It is a 6-part series with the premise kind of being that he would release them before an album. So the first 2 came out, I believe, in 2011, and then the third one came out, I believe, in 2012 or 2015, something like that. And then the 4th one came out before Damn, so that was in 2017. Then the 5th one before Mr. Morale. The 6th one was on GNX. So I decided it would be fun, at least for me. Maybe you guys will enjoy it too, but I thought it would be fun to rank them. I listened to them this morning, re-listened to all of them. I love going back and listening to all of them again. And surprisingly, the Heart Part 1 is my favorite of the Heart series. I love all of the bars. It's the speed that he goes at, the bars that he hits. It's just unmatched in that series. Number 2 on the Heart series. I like Heart Part 6. I know it's new, it might be recency bias, but I think for me, the way I listen to music is however I'm feeling at the time, or whatever I'm going through. It can kind of help me to if it's something that I relate to, like some lyrics that are said that I relate to or something like that. And at the time that the GNX album came out, I was going through some stuff, and the Heart Part 6, when I really started to listen to it, to use your heart and not your eyes, and just forget about like comparing yourself to others and really follow your heart and what you really want to do and what you really want to make a difference in people's lives, and not just scroll and waste your time on social media. I think it was that might not have been what it was about, but that's what it meant to me. And I think that's the love that I have for music, and I'm sure others have, is just it connects with you. It makes you feel a certain way. Sometimes you don't even know why it makes you feel a certain way, but it just does. And yeah, that's number 2. Number 3 on the ranking, Heart Part 4. It was much anticipated. Like every piece of Kendrick's catalog, it's analyzed to no end. It's picked apart. I loved it. The beat switch is something that I wasn't a huge fan of, because there's multiple beat switches in it. I like the first 2/3 of it, and then the last third doesn't really do it for me as much, but it's a solid entry in the series. Coming in at number 4, the Heart Part 5. The music video for it, I will never forget seeing it for the first time. Obviously the deep fake technology with like Kobe Bryant, O.J. Simpson, Nipsey Hussle, and all the different faces that we saw on Kendrick as he was rapping. It was something that I'll never forget. I think I was in a IHOP parking lot after just having breakfast, and I was just shocked as to what was to come with his next album. And we'll get to my thoughts on Mr. Morale, but a great way to come out of the gates for Kendrick after having not released anything for a while. Coming in at number 5, the Heart Part 2. The beginning has definitely stuck with me. The little snippet of the interviewee getting asked what keeps you alive, and him saying music keeps me alive, and it's really stuck with me for a while since I listened to it, and kind of thinking about what really gets you going, what gets you up in the morning. And I think it's good to have something that no matter what is just always consistently gonna get you out of bed and get you going, whether it be your fitness or music or your career or your family or your significant other. But number 6 on the list, last but not least, I would say the Heart Part 3. It doesn't connect it for me as well, and I just love all the other 5 entries more. There's nothing bad against it. I have nothing bad to say about any of Kendrick's catalog at all. I think it all has its own purpose. We all evolve as people over time, and so the same should go for our art that we create. So that was the Heart series ranked. Now moving on, this was the turning point for Kendrick. 2010, 2011, and then comes October 22nd, 2012. You guys know it. His most successful, I think, his most famous, his most well-known, what he's most well-known for, Good Kid, M.A.A.d City. It drops. And if you want to know the story and how it unfolds, I highly recommend the Dissect podcast. Cole Kushner does an excellent examination of the album, like song by song, and how it kind of all comes together. It's kind of, in short, it's kind of just Kendrick going, like riding in his van or riding in a car with his friends and getting into trouble, and him realizing kind of that's not really the lifestyle that he wants. But he goes more in depth, but I'm just giving a little bit of a snapshot as to what it's about. But obviously it just has some bangers, some absolute just bangers, and some of Kendrick's best known songs are on that album. And one of the reasons why I love Kendrick's music is because you can just vibe to the lyrics, you can connect with them, but you can also just connect to the beat. you can connect to the bars, but then if you pay attention and if you listen to the lyrics, there's a lot more than just on the surface, and he really knows how to connect. And if you research, like if you go on Genius or if you go places and you look at what the albums truly mean, sometimes it just brings it full circle. Oh, this is what he's talking about. This is what how much a dollar cost means. This is what he was talking about on Hood Politics. This is what he was talking about here. And it's just cool to peel back the layers. And I've been listening to these albums for years, and I'm still learning new things each time I listen to them. Like, I didn't know Fear on Damn was his fear as a 7-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 27-year-old. I think it's just, there's all these things that you just learn, and I think it makes re-listen ability to his projects just so fascinating, because you can just find new Easter eggs and find new things that you didn't really know was what he was meaning to get across. Some of my favorite tracks on this album: Art of Peer Pressure, Money Trees, Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst. But it's just so hard to pick certain songs on this album, because as a collective, it's just, once you start it, you just want to play the whole thing all the way through. That was in 2012, and a couple years go by, and Kendrick in 2015 drops To Pimp a Butterfly. Up to this point, the most emotional Kendrick project at that point, a switch for sure in just the music and the sonics, and a completely different vibe than what people were used to. I wasn't as on the internet back then as I was now, and knowing just the dialogue around it, I really just didn't know it at all. And I really wasn't too familiar with Kendrick. I've gotten a lot more familiar with him as time has gone on, but a lot of things in this album, a lot of things to unpack, dealing with such a quick rise to fame and stardom for Kendrick. He went from up and coming to getting the cosign from Dr. Dre, one of the greatest in LA and in California, the West Coast, and he was just getting everybody's eyes on him after Good Kid, Mad City, going on tour. And it's such an interesting album, because obviously there is some bangers, you know, we got King Kunta, but it's about storytelling. And as Kendrick mentioned in an interview for what he wants to do at the Super Bowl, and he wants it to be about storytelling, and I think that's something that he's always had in his music. He's always been trying to tell stories, and like on You, How Much a Dollar Cost, it's about looking outward, and in some of his project, he's looking outward and seeing things that he doesn't approve of. You see that in Mr. Morale, like N95. You see him looking outward at things that he doesn't like in society, but then being able to turn the finger that you're pointing at others and turn it back on yourself with tracks like You and Mirror. And those just hit so hard, because when you reflect on yourself, it takes a lot, because sometimes you just see the things that you really need to work on as a person. And I think everything is magnified when you're a celebrity, and when you're famous and successful, people are gonna really gonna look at your flaws, and they're gonna become exaggerated. And so I think when Kendrick mentions at the end of the album, like when things aren't going well and shit hits the fan, are you still gonna be a fan? And that's how he kind of ends the album. And it's so interesting going through all these projects and albums, the way he he's so adamant about just because he's a role model doesn't necessarily make him perfect, and coming to terms with being a flawed individual is something that I really admire about Kendrick. Some of my favorite tracks, I like the single version. I mean, I know I get the reason why he put the sort of narrative nature with the live performance of I on the album. I understand why he did that, but I personally like to just vibe out to the single when I'm listening to it. King Kunta, These Walls, but overall it's not just about picking out songs, it's about the whole body of work as a whole. And I mean, To Pimp a Butterfly it's so good that he made an entire album of throwaways, and that's what we're getting to next. Untitled Unmastered 2016. Straight up, Kendrick's throwaways are better than most rappers nowadays, just entire catalogs, period. My favorite tracks, Untitled 05, Untitled 08. I just like it. It's fun to just see Kendrick messing around in the studio in the 2014 through 2016 session, one of those tracks. It's just fun to see him just what he was thinking, and seeing how that track would have fit on To Pimp a Butterfly, and in any of those tracks it just doesn't really fit, but I love that he just has that project. I think it's so cool. I wish he would do another one. I think he probably has so many unreleased songs that I'd be dying to listen to. 2017, freshman year of high school for your boy. Spring semester, so like the last month of school he drops. Damn. And I remember Humble coming out. I loved it. It was the single that came out before the album. I loved it, but obviously, you know, I don't like it as much just because how overplayed it got. But I remember, you know, when it first came out, loving it. So some of my favorite tracks from the album: Yeah, Feel, Pride, XXX featuring U2. A great album. I love it. I love that initially I had no idea about the element of it being played in reverse, and that being the collector's edition is in reverse order. I love that. I love that Kendrick just tries things and he goes for it, and he's my favorite artist by far. And at this time, going through high school, Kendrick wasn't dropping. He wasn't coming out with stuff. He was still around, having some features, and he did the Black Panther soundtrack in 2018. Definitely has some bangers on it. But time was just going on, and Kendrick wasn't dropping any music, and some of my friends in high school were saying how, oh, Drake's better, and because he was releasing more, and I never really gave up on him because I loved his stuff. He just wasn't really releasing and stuff. So as the years go on, kind of just wondering, like, damn, is Kendrick done? Like, or what is his next project gonna be? And then in 2022, the summer, not quite to be remembered like 2024 summer of Kendrick, but it was definitely eye-opening when Kendrick dropped Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Had no idea how it was gonna be. We saw the cover art with Kendrick and his wife and his 2 kids, and wasn't really sure what to expect. We got the Heart Part 5, like I mentioned, with the deep fake technology. And listening to the album, it was different than what I listened to. I listened to it for the first time with my friend Tavon when it came out. The night it dropped, I loved that because it was like my first time listening to an album right when it dropped. And I remember we started it, and I think we had it on shuffle because it played Silent Hill with Kodak Black, and I was like, this is a weird start, but it wasn't the actual start of the album. But over the course of the album, he goes over just what he's been going through since Damn. Starts the album off with 1,855 days later, because that's the distance from Damn to Mr. Morale. And he talks about just over the course of the album it was a therapy session for the things that he'd been going through, not just in terms of the pandemic, but in terms of dealing with fame and things of that nature. And some of the things revealed in the album is his sex addiction and the affairs that he had, and how he was cheating on his wife. And he talks about how, like I mentioned, him being looked at as a role model, and the pressure that can have on somebody, and how he's not perfect, and he never sought out to be the savior, as he mentions on Savior, and how he's not your savior, he's not perfect. But he talks about his family and, you know, the struggles that he endured, and much like in You, as I mentioned, in To Pimp a Butterfly, he kind of turns the focus on himself and Mir. And even with the lyrics, sorry I didn't save the world, my friend, I was too busy building mine again. Like, he had gone through a lot, and he'd come to terms with the things that he had messed up with, and it was a lot to put that out to the world. And, you know, I commend him for that, for just being so honest and making songs like Mother I Sober, and just being able to be vulnerable, I think, is really important. Obviously, you know, you want to be vulnerable with people that you trust, but just being vulnerable in general, I think, is something that can be learned from with Mr. Morale and Kendrick. And so after Mr. Morale, after winning a couple Grammys for that, per usual for Kendrick, the summer of 2023, he dropped Hillbillies with his cousin, Baby Keem. Baby Keem had success in 2021 with the album that he dropped, Melodic Blue, one of my favorite albums of the 2020s. On May 30th, 2023, on the PG Lang YouTube, dropped the Hillbillies video, and I loved it. I'm glad it came to Spotify about a week later. It was one of my favorite songs of the summer. Just them having fun, kind of a subliminal diss, as you can say about a lot of things looking back on Kendrick's career. A lot of them are shots at not just Drake, but other rappers in general. He loves taking shots. The Control verse, one of the most well-known with Big Sean and Jay Electronica. Like, Kendrick's been wanting to go to the top, and he's going to do it in any means necessary, and he did. And the only solo rapper to lead a halftime show. Kendrick, you deserve it. I can't wait for Sunday. Then, as many of you know, as everybody seemingly in the world knows, Drake and Kendrick had a beef that started with First Person Shooter, a Drake and J. Cole collab, October 6, 2023. If my dates are wrong, I looked this up this morning, but correct me if I'm wrong. As you guys know, that sparked Kendrick to be on Like That, Metro Boomin, and Future, and then they go back and forth, Family Matters, Euphoria, 616 in LA, you know, all these ones back and forth, and then, you know, Kendrick drops the hammer with Meet the Grams, Euphoria, and we think, whoa, like, this is, like, I think he's got it. But then the nail in the coffin comes with Not Like Us dropping in May, I believe May 4th, correct me if I'm wrong, but Not Like Us drops, and that summer I was just so happy for content from Kendrick. It didn't even matter if it was a diss. I loved it. I loved just listening to all the bars and the beats, and Mustard going crazy on the beat. But it was a crazy summer, and one of the best years for an artist, not just a rapper, but an artist of all time. 2024 was Kendrick's year to rise to the top, so much that 2025 he's leading the halftime show for the Super Bowl. So absolutely crazy. Kendrick wasn't done with winning the beef. He had to take a victory lap, and that victory lap was GNX, a surprise drop. Nobody knew it was coming. November 22nd, 2024, I believe, a couple days before my birthday. It was a nice treat. It was a nice treat. A true West Coast classic. I love that he had a bunch of underground Compton rappers on it. I love it, just bringing up the new kids on the block. I love it. It was my go-to listen, just starting it from start to finish. It would get me from point A to point B in my car, just listening, going place to place, house to house, Christmas break, going, it's all these Christmas events and stuff. I was just listening to it, bumping it. Favorite tracks: Squabble Up, Luther, Hey Now, Dodger Blue, Gloria. Cannot wait for his concert. Very excited for that. And now, last but not least, my personal rankings in terms of my favorites. Not the best, because they're all great. Most of them are great. A couple of them are good, but not great. But these are my favorites for Kendrick Lamar, his albums. Coming in at number 8, Untitled Unmastered. It's throwaways. It's good, but they're throwaways. Coming in at number 7, Overly Dedicated. Got some bangers, for sure. But, it's the start. You can't knock it out of the park off the start, unless you're Jordan Peele with Get Out. But, I digress. Coming in at number 6, Section 80. Got some bangers, but not quite at the level of the other albums in the catalog. Now we're in the top 5. This is where it got real tricky for me. Real tricky. Now, these are my favorite. Not the best, not the most successful, but my personal favorite. What do I want to listen to over and over and over? What do I love lyric-wise, bar-wise, beat-wise, production-wise? Coming in at number 5, To Pimp a Butterfly. I love it. I love the concept. But if I'm trying to rock out, I'm not trying to listen to you. I'm not trying to listen to Mortal Man. It's great. It's greatness. I'm not saying anything bad about Kendrick. You're the man. Don't come after me, Kendrick. I love you, dog. But it'll come in at number 5. I'll leave it at that. Number 4, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. This has a close place in my heart. Because, like I mentioned, these albums come out at certain times in our lives. Like last summer, Vince Staples' Dark Times, it came out. I loved it. It just, in the moment, what I was feeling, what I was doing at that moment, just everything came together, and that was one of my favorite albums of 2024. I loved it. Mr. Morale, when it came out in 2022, I just got back from college for the summer. I was starting a new chapter of, my life at that time, and it was just hitting, and I think listening to it with my best friend, and at the time that I listened to it, and the mindset that I was in, and where I was at mentally, it just hit at certain moments, and the points in the album where he kind of reflects inward and talks about past traumas, and I had gone through something a couple of years earlier that was a bit traumatic, and I think I connected really, really closely with just the being okay to focus on yourself and rebuild after some things happen in your life. But yeah, it just has a close place in my heart. Obviously, you know, it doesn't have the consistent plays on some of the songs like Mother I Sober and you know, songs of that nature. But yeah, that's coming in at number 4, Mr. Morale. Top 3 now. You might have an idea of where I'll go, but it was tough for me. You might say it's recency bias, but oh well. This is my channel, so you know, it is what it is. But coming in at number 3, I have Damn. 2017's Damn. I loved it at the time. I still love it. Got some bangers. Shout out to Carson. He has a tattoo of Damn on his person, but I love it. It's a great album. But, you know, there's 2 that I just I like a little bit better. A little bit better. Coming in at number 2. Now, I don't want you guys to think I'm crazy, but this is true. GNX will come in at number 2. I wasn't gonna put it at number 1, I'm not crazy. But I love it. I've come to love it. At first I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I just wasn't sure. I wasn't either negative or positive about it. I was just, whoa, it was kind of a lot. It was kind of a switch up from what I was expecting. But I love it. Dodger Blue. White Diamonds, 2 a.m. She Wildin'. I love it. It's a classic. I cannot wait to go to the concert. Sherrard, Alex, I'm ready for it. So ready to get after it. Coming in at number 1, it has to be Good Kid, M.A.A.d City. It's a certified classic, the one that started it all, the one that Kendrick will be known for. Banger. Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst. Good Kid, M.A.A.d City, Master Splinter. You know, it's a banger. It's a classic. I love it so much, and I'm so glad that I'm alive at the time of Kendrick Lamar. I'm so glad for that, because he's one of a kind. He's you know, my Elvis. He's my Michael Jackson. He's my LeBron James. You know, so keep bringing out the music, Kendrick. Keep it coming. I can't wait for Sunday. I hope you guys enjoyed. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl, and until next time.